Brussels, Europe, the Commission, I think it's fair to say that Europe has been a driver for a lot of things being done in the member states. I think that when we did the climate and energy package 2 or 3 years back, setting the target for 20% renewables by 2020, 20% CO2 emissions reductions by 2020, CO2, 20% energy efficiency, that was sort of giving a push forward to a lot of member states starting to embrace this agenda in a way that would not have been the case had Brussels not sort of giving us the push. I can say so because I was a minister at the time, and I know how this has worked, how the dynamic has worked with member states. And I think that's still the role that Brussels has. We all know how difficult times it is. Nonetheless, in May we said that Europe stands by its pledges from up to Copenhagen that we will do 20% unilaterally, but we are ready to do 30% provided others will also deliver substantial things. You could say, yes, of course you would stand by, but this spring, with so many economic challenges in Europe, that might not have been a given thing. We said that, and as a new thing, we also said, by the way, it's also not just a question of international negotiations and what others do. It's also a question of how can we benefit our economy by making a much more green economy. And that's why, for instance, this spring 2011, the Commission will come forward with a roadmap for 2050, a roadmap how we can reduce in the size 80 to 95%. And included in that roadmap will also be a target for 2030. Because we in Europe think that it's hard time not only to talk about 2020, but also to start to talk about 2030. If you're an investor and you are in doubt what to do and where to put your money, you really start to look beyond 2020, and you want to be sure that there will be ambitious climate policies also for 2030. I also think that it's fair to say that Europe is putting up the tools, no matter whether it's standard for cars or for vans or for trucks or energy efficiency standards or lots of other things, sustainability criteria for biofuels, many other things there. We can do more together when we work together, 27 countries, than if each of us would have to do things together. So I think that there is a broad acceptance in Europe that also in the picture of the world, in the geostrategic picture we see of the 21st century, Europe will not have to work less together, we will have to work more together, and we will benefit from doing it instead of 27 going each their corner. If you then say, is it easy then to make Europe speak with one voice? Of course not always. It's 27 different governments, 27 different ministers. But actually I think that also in the preparation for this COP, we have been really examining our positions very carefully, and there is a very clear common denominator. And when we speak with this one voice, we can also sort of push things most forward. And that's what we're trying to do here, because as you will know, it's not Europe who's the problem. I would say that it's some other bigger parties that have not committed internationally so far. That's where the main problem is, and the main challenge also for this conference is.
You mentioned your target of minus 20%, that could be stretched up to 30% in case other parties will put forward ambitious proposals. I know that this should have been 2007 perhaps, was this offer? 8. And there was some internal criticism in Europe, because they said that they would be running out of bargaining chips and so on and so forth. Now, speaking on behalf of Mexico, we are also interested, and we are really doing that, in taking unilateral moves. What we said in the program, the special program for climate change, is purely unilateral. That's a reduction of 51 million tons, come hail or high water, in 2012. We are not saying that this will be dependent on support or whatever. The support we will need for medium term and long term. But what we can achieve in this administration is unilateral. And our president has been quite vocal, saying that we are not going to wait for anyone. If we all start waiting for others, then for sure the car is not going to leave. The train is going to stay at the station. And we are running out of time. So there is a coincidence with not so many groups or parties that are willing to put forward unilateral pledges. Now, I know that there has been a lot of discussion coming within your constituency, whether you should keep that and go to 30, minus 30%, or at least clarify under what conditions you would do that. There are finally also conditionalities, and that's the reality of politics. But your status currently on this is that you keep your pledge to the 20% reduction, and we'll see what happens in Cancun and afterwards. Am I correct?
Yes, in a sense, but I just think that it's fair to say, find one region in the world who has set as an ambitious target as the European Union has done for 500 million people. And try if you can find any other party who has not only set up the target, but also very, very specifically had made the effort sharing, the burden sharing between 27 member states, putting up the tools, and at the same time we are discussing, should we even increase it further, even though others did not sort of follow. That's the reality. Some back in Europe would ask, what did we really gain by sort of, as also Fernando started saying, sort of leading this? Did we gain anything? Would there be any followers? There I think it's interesting to note that where we were more or less alone when we made this climate and energy package and set the targets back in 2008, then in the last 6-7 months in the run-up to Copenhagen, actually a lot of countries for the first time ever set domestic targets. Countries like India, South Africa, Mexico, Brazil, Korea, Singapore, Indonesia, the list is much longer. In the end, even China, out of sync with their normal 5-year plan, and as you know, also the Americans came forward with at least something. They haven't got it through the Senate, but it was there. And the list is much longer. You know that now more than 80 countries have submitted something according to the annex in the Copenhagen Accord. Just to say that that is a profound change from where we were 2 years ago. 2 years ago, we were more or less alone. And today we have this list of around 80 countries actually submitting something. So I think that it's fair to say, as you also did in the beginning, Fernando, that we have been pushing this, and we are trying now also to have a position that will still put the pressure on those who also will have to contribute. Europe accounts for 14% of global emissions. Some would even say it's only 11 now, but it's decreasing. Others are increasing very significantly. So needless to say, if we are going to stay below the 2 degrees that our leaders pledged in Copenhagen, then a lot more countries will have to do a lot more, or we will not make it. And that is basically the challenge that we are faced with also here. How can we take care not only to anchor the pledges from the Copenhagen according to the formal negotiations, but also to agree on some kind of text that makes it clear that of course we have to build further on these targets. They will not be enough, more will have to be done, and that is one of the main issues, I think, before the end of this week. How to get all these parties to agree that of course what you have submitted now is not the end of the story, it's just the beginning of the story.